back after our coffee break. Hopefully, more people will be joining us for the next sessions before lunch. And we've got very interesting issues on our agenda. We've heard about data governance issues actually from the early morning. Why is it so? When you think about your organizations and you think now, how many employees actually have access to multiple agents across your organizations? Would you know? Would you know how many AI agents they are actually using at this moment? So this is the question. Actually, it is said that for medium and large organizations, often they are run around by AI tools. Wait, dozens of AI tools. But actually, I talked to our next speaker, and he said dozens is not even a close number. So what we're going to talk about now is what to do once you give your employees across multiple departments access to multiple AI tools. How we're going to secure what's going to happen next. And this time a little bit different perspective, because we're going to have a perspective from the marketing department. So please give it up for Director of Product Marketing at Barracuda, Stefan van der Waal.
Thank you so much. Now, it's always a little bit dangerous to go here as product marketing. And let me just assuage a little bit of the concerns here. I am one of the champions within Barracuda that helps us with AI adoption, optimizing process, talking to customers about AI, and seeing how this trend impacts us all. Now, when I started this, and said to Software One, hey guys, I would really love to do a session on generative AI. I knew the risk that we would have multiple speakers coming before me, and each and every one sat there and said something about, hey, we're doing this with AI, this is what's happening. So when I started this morning, my story was about 50% different than what it's going to be now, but that's fine. That is how fast generative AI changes my life personally. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you a little bit through how we as a technology vendor use AI, how we see the problems, especially that around, the starter problem, which is shadow AI, and how we feel that we should solve that with you, for you, in conjunction with our partners such as Software One. A lot of the things I will be reaffirming today is what was said by Microsoft, what was said by AWS, what was said by Software One and Google. But I didn't want you to just have a reiteration of what the morning was. So let me give you a little insight as well. First, the Logicalis Group CIO said, AI is no longer about proving value, it's about scaling safely and with confidence. Now, that being said, I will have two dissenting opinions on that one. One is our friends from Uber said yesterday it came to me in a tweet, which is probably not the natural way, that they didn't really see any proper return of their investment in AI, and it really didn't do the amounts of things that they had hoped for given the amount of money they put into it. It's still a tool. How you use it will depend on your outcomes will depend on how you use it. Then I talked to a customer organization last week, and I asked my contact, who was someone who worked in the IT department, I said, how did you use Gen AI lately? And she said, well, I use ChatGPT. We have a section that's core enough for us where we put in information, and we've automated a process that was really making my life difficult. So I said to her, I said, would you have ever done that if it wasn't for Gen AI? And her answer was no. So all of a sudden, someone who does not really have the comfort with coding, does not have the comfort with large data ingestion, starts a project, finishes it successfully, and is happy. Now, your Gen AI experience may vary. It really all depends on how you prompt, and sometimes it depends on what day the model has. I will give you an example. For a presentation, not even this one, I asked for an image of an iceberg. We in security love our icebergs. And eventually I got this. It's great, right? I was pretty happy. But before that, it had spent 15 minutes and it came up with this. Want to know what the difference was? One word. Realistic. And apparently, it didn't have its day for that moment. So we at Barracuda, funnily enough, 4 weeks ago, this was a 4-step, and then we went, nope, life changed, it's different. These, for us, are the 3 key topics of where we carry both our own organization and our customers' organization through adopting Gen AI. First off, and the first step with the largest exposure and risk, shadow AI. This morning, all the good questions were already asked, and I'm very grateful for that because now I know the answer, but I have one more for you, and if you could raise your hand if you can tell me the answer, that would be great. How many of you use Gen AI that was sanctioned by your company, where they had a policy around it and it was okay? That's a lot less hands than I saw this morning. That's great. That basically reinforces my point. So shadow AI, understand what you see and how you deal with it. The second, Gen AI, data protection and governance. And last but not least, we've heard it, agentic AI, the nightmare waiting to happen. Pivoting to AI comes with new risks. The question is no longer whether AI will transform organizations, it is who can operationalize it at scale. 2 weeks ago, our product organization, led by our CTO, said, you guys are going to take 3 days where you're going to do a hackathon, you're going to use AI, good luck, have fun. Best move ever. Because all of a sudden we had people that think completely different around tech, starting to collect data, starting to do things, starting to build things. That's how we make our products better. But 70% of users have admitted to using these things without proper approval. You saw the room. And 60% of data leakage when it comes to AI comes from AI models that you didn't sanction. So let's take a look at how we think about that. First of all, you will have 3 classifications. You will have authorized AI, tools that you use, your co-pilots, your Claudes, just name them. Unauthorized, which are the dangerous ones. We saw them this morning, Worm GPT, scary stuff. And last but not least, shadow AI, which is like, it might be wrong, it might not be wrong, we want to experiment with it, but these are roughly the 3 classifications you will see. And what you will want to do is you will see that your users will try to access these. The top ones aren't that scary, maybe. The bottom ones are very scary. Moltbot, when it was released, it took 1 day for the Barracuda security office to tell us that absolutely you could not use that, which was probably the right assessment. But when we want to know what our users use, we want to be able to direct them because we have these 3 categories. It's allowed, it might be okay, and absolutely not. And it's especially the absolutely not category that you want to mitigate. I'm not going to go into technical details. I've got some very talented people with me at our booth who can talk to you how we as Barracuda see this from a technical perspective. The second topic, so after you understand what runs across your network, what your users are using, what your users are not allowed to use, you go into data protection and governance. Last week, we had a chat about AI security with a room full of people, and we asked, what's the most important thing? And the answer was data leakage prevention, because once we put it in, we can't get it out. Users will upload data to GenAI. I will give you a personal anecdote. I lived in a small municipality of Amersfoort in the Netherlands, really cozy, really fun. And I haven't lived there for 3 years because I moved. This year, I got an email, a physical mail even, saying, we're very sorry, we accidentally lost all your data, your name, your former address, social security number, everything, because someone, well, they didn't tell us that, but it was heavily implied, copied the data into ChatGPT to get an understanding of who should get a mailing. Thank you so much, but that's awkward. 57% of users actively hide using AI. I don't know why. We're actually quite proud of it when we do. 46% of users would still keep it going even when they're told to stop. That is, by the way, the stat that worries me more. As I said, what goes in, whether it's proprietary data, PII, confidential data, you will have to get it back out. Now, I'm going to apologize to the representative from AWS because it was the best example that we got, and it's not to pick on you, absolutely not, because if this happens to Amazon, this happens to everyone. If you put data in, you will get it back out. Another example is a customer organization adopted a certain AI model. The attackers came in and asked what the IT environment looked like, and it spat it all up. Fun. What do we believe is part of GenAI data protection and governance? Well, first of all, it's prompt inspection. What actually are we putting in there? Second, we've heard it before, identity matters, and identity matters even more in the generative AI world. So we need to make sure that we know where, what, and how it has access to what data, how does it matter? Data leakage prevention is what everyone thinks of when they say, oh, that's what it needs to do. It's what we aim to do as well, understand what gets uploaded by prompt inspection, which files are going in there, when are they going in there, and how. Last one is a bit of an interesting one. I will, in a little bit, show you a little bit about the Barracuda platform and why we get certain questions. One of the things is archiving. And one of the questions we got is we want to be able to archive and audit every individual prompt for a year. Okay, that's fine. We believe that is part of understanding what it does. What do we think it does with GDPR? Honestly, right now, I don't know. That's going to be a theme throughout AI security where even the best security people around us are going to go, right now, I don't know. It's still a developing circumstance. But as was said earlier, and I cannot stress this enough, stick with your fundamentals and reduce your attack surface. Because no matter how good GenAI is, it's not going to break science and all of a sudden get access to something that has no access. The buzzword, agentic AI. Most of us aren't ready yet. And I say yet. We're working on it. I'll give you a little bit of an interesting stat. Our Office of the CIO confirms which agents we are allowed to use. We can design them, but we need to submit them before they are published. The largest amount of agents that are built are not built by the engineers. They are built by people like me, by people like our sales organization, because they find a way to optimize their work. And scanning each and every one of them is the only way to know if we did something very, very silly in setting it up. For agentic AI, we'll be looking at inventorying autonomous agents. Making sure, again, it's another visibility problem. First from the shadow AI, then whatever your colleagues have built that's allowed to run amok on the network. Least privilege enforcement. You know what's great? Gen AI can send emails by you. So I would love to see my CEO, who will probably be interested in this sort of thing, go, well, we'll automate something and we'll allow email sending. Question for security at that point would be, is that something we want without checks and balances? I'll leave it to the room. Last, and it was said earlier, a little more eloquently, but I'm not a native English speaker, so I'm going to go a little bit back. Garbage in is garbage out. And especially when agents talk to agents, we have no way of verifying. So we need to do a form of input and output scanning and understand the answers that it comes up with and if they make sense. Key checks and balances. By the way, if you ask me how we're going to do this, I don't know. Smarter people than I will break out the problem. We just identified the problem. That's where I'll hide behind marketing. A friend from Google talked about the autonomous SOC. That is a great idea. We have, as Barracuda, we have a SOC, and I'm very, very pleased to see that. I almost had whiplash when he was talking by nodding so hard, which we've seen the first iterations of attacks where the cyber kill chain doesn't really matter. They just throw everything in the kitchen sink at you in under 10 seconds, and you better be ready to catch it. And yes, that is part of automation. That is what you need to do. The attackers are already there. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Barracuda, I promised everyone I wouldn't do a sales thing, so I'm just going to give you an idea of why we think about these things and how many teams of people are currently working on this problem. I apologize, Software One, but our platform is called Barracuda One. We take care of email in the form of spam filtering, phishing, yada, yada, yada. You've heard them all before. Backup and recovery, network security, SASE, SSE, all the buzzwords. But the point is that we have all these different development teams that look through the network layer, that look through the application layer, that look through XDR and go, this is how we should approach this problem. Now, second, I think someone said, you're not a serious vendor if you haven't named your AI. Yeah, it was Eric. Thank you for that one. This is my proof. We have two forms of AI. We have Bailey. Bailey is available to each and every one of you, and it will tell you everything you need to know about Barracuda. Sits on our website, talks to you, never gets tired, never gets annoyed. We actually had to program it for that because at some point, if you ask really, really silly questions, we found that some models get a little bit snippy. And Barracuda IQ. Barracuda IQ is what I use with my teams and my colleagues from PM, from PMM, from technical marketing engineering, to optimize our processes and to say, okay, this is the data that we want to ingest. This is where I can safely, as safe as it gets, can communicate with the Gen AI models that we as Barracuda have enabled. Barracuda has had an AI policy for 2 years. It's written, we all know it. Do we all adhere to it? Well, we have checks and balances in place, but one of the reasons is we can use AI freely and understand it freely to make sure that we can play with it. There are a lot of other things that we could say about this. I'm not going to do it because I'm running out of time. But please, come to our stand and have a chat with us about this. We know you have IT security solutions that you want to use, that you prefer. We are open. We want to connect with them and make sure that we help you get a single point of view of what is happening to your environment. We do that together with our partners. Really quickly, because I see people coming up to me already. First step, this is the one thing that I want every single one of you to think about. Do you know what AI is on your network? Who's using what? If not, come talk to us, but address that first. Second, start thinking about data you put in, the things you sanction, and what you want to do with those. Policy is good, enforcement is better. And we'll be back with the security in the agentic layer later, because that one is developing so fast that each week I have to change my position on that one. I want to give you a little gift. I was afraid, and again, I thank our friend from Google for this one, that I was the only one who's going to dissent on Mythos. Mythos is a great thing. I like it. But it may be a little bit overhyped in marketing. I know marketing. Our CISO, together with the team, build a website. Who uses a hyphen in a website? I don't know, but it's ai-hype.ai. And in it, we explain how we look at the Mythos positioning. Do we think it's a hype? Do we think it's real? What do we base that data on? Most importantly, how do attackers use these elements? And how you as defenders should think about this. If you go to this, it was last updated a few days ago. This is an ongoing project that we will keep up to date to help you understand what's happening here. Because I'm glad that our CISO does it, because I love reading it and I really like the data, but he at least knows what he's talking about. With that, I'm way over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, very much. We got some questions. We'll just tackle them later on during lunch. You can approach Stefan because we got questions for him about the priorities, where to start securing those AI agents, priorities for leaders. I'm sure Stefan will tell you more during the lunch break. We're going on to our next speaker, and we're going to turn to the often overlooked topic of backups. We know it's an embarrassing a little bit topic, because sometimes we have backups, but we forget to protect them efficiently. And they are also a really nice, chunky, and juicy place where attackers like to attack, because they would like to undermine the recovery of backups. So the next speaker will elaborate on how to ensure that backups are not only secure and trustworthy, but they are there when we need them the most, when the business needs them the most. So join me in giving a warm welcome to lead systems engineer at Veeam Software, Martin Beran.
Thank you. Hello. It's been such an honor to share the stage with such big speakers. So I'm not a native English speaker, so apologize if I will talk a little bit mumbo jumbo in the English. But let's start with a bold statement. Your job just changed. That's big true, because there is a big movement, big shift in how do we feel and how do we use and how do we secure our infrastructure. You are trained for some scenarios. Most likely, if you touch backups, if you do backups, you trained for some recovery scenarios, recovery trainings, and so on and so forth. But everything has changed since then. There are three eras of data protection. Let me elaborate what does it mean from our perspective. First era is so-called backup and recovery. We all have been there. Yeah. Second era, cyber resilience. It's what's actually happening right now. And what's coming, everyone is talking about this topic today. Every presentation does have this agentic AI, the same, mine, of course. So the era we are slowly, but for sure, getting into is agentic AI. Let's elaborate each of them. First one, backup and recovery era. We were building our data centers to protect them against some disasters of hardware failures. We were building our data protection infrastructure to protect the data because someone, the person, a human, would delete a file, destroy the database, or made some configuration mistake in infrastructure, right? Most of the failures or events were caused by human. I think we all agree on it. So then virtualization came. I think everyone was there. Yeah, we had hundreds of servers in data centers, and suddenly one company brought the idea, let's virtualize them, and why to run 400 physical servers when you can have just tens in each data center, replicate them, and so on and so forth. With virtualization, there was a new challenge, because I think you also remember at the beginning, the approach for data protection of virtualized servers was how? Agent inside. Exactly the same way as we did or performed the backup of the physical instance, the physical silo of our application. But again, one vendor came up with a brilliant idea to create API to handle the virtualized disks, VDDK API. And with this, all the magic starts. So Veeam software developed and patented at first at the market, something very well known on the market right now, instant recovery, which immediately brought the technology which allowed the customers, administrators, CEOs to count with a recovery time objective, RTO, in minutes. So it was totally different and new world. But it wasn't so bright, because meanwhile, everything got connected, right? So once everything got connected to the internet, there was no issue with hardware anymore, because we were really good in building up redundancy and replicated storages and multiple data centers and everything like this, all the solid technologies. But suddenly, if we were prepared for destroying or deleting some data in our infrastructure in a cyber resilience era, which is actually happening right now, there are attacks from outside, right? So the attackers are targeting our infrastructure, and attackers are targeting our backups. If in operational era, in case of disaster, we can count on most recent backup, usually. If it was readable, we were okay, because the data were there. In cyber resilience era, the recovery point might be unknown. So we do have to dwell into the backups and find out which backup we can use. So again, new challenges. The backup infrastructure and backup process itself does have one super advantage. It can access all of your data. With this advantage, taking it in the account and in the processes of the backup, backup vendors, including us, implemented into the backup process itself all the security mechanisms, scans of ransomware, malware scanning, IOC detection engines, and so on and so forth. But is it enough? I hope yes, but now comes AI-driven era, which at first brings much more complexity and most crucially, super speed. If the hacker can act really fast, hacker controlling AI agents can act much, much faster. And there even doesn't have to be hacker, right? It can be internal agent just malfunctioning. We give it too much permissions, and it can destroy all of our company data, all code, because Claude can code on top of your Git, and it decides, okay, I don't want to do this job anymore, and delete everything. You all, for sure, have noticed the last or recent event where Claude deleted some code of one company in US, but it apologizes the day after. Nice. It apologizes, but that are gone. So, agentic era. We feel there are 3 shifts in agentic era which is coming. All shifts are coming in one. Yeah, it's not one and sequentially second and then third one. First one, there is a shift from how data are handled, from structured in databases to unstructured data in some data lakes, or just stored on some NAS device or in clouds. Second, infrastructure for AI. Yeah, it's going to be massive. But the security of this infrastructure of AI approach hasn't kept up. Let's be honest. Yeah. If the application in SaaS platforms of average enterprise in like 2 years ago were like silos. Yeah, you used a lot of services, and each service does have own data set, and you use the service. And you connect them at maximum together with some single sign-on, yeah, like to have access everywhere. Nowadays, with agentic AI approach, every agent can have access to every service at super fast machine speed. So we need to address this somehow. From some research, we feel that there will be 82 to 1 more agentic identities accessing your data than human ones and at the end of 2026. So it's coming, it's here, and we need to react. There are some failures. Mythos was already mentioned here several times. If I'm not wrong, the code of Mythos already leaked. So yeah, be ready. To build up the proper data protection infrastructure or infrastructure itself, we, for many years, rely on something we call zero trust. But zero trust is or was built for humans or against humans, not in literally, but against human errors or human misbehavior. So we protected perimeter with an agentic approach or agentic AI era. The data is perimeter because there is an agent inside, yeah, and it can access, if it's not governed well, it can access anything. How the average or AI stack looks today, there is some compute infrastructure hardware, right? Data centers. On top of it, you have the data you are feeding to AI stored in some data lakes, data warehouses, databases, NAS devices, clouds, whatever. And models are accessing those data with agent orchestration and some control and governance. And then there are those agentic AI approach applications accessing through the orchestration engine. But there is obviously one layer missing, right? And where should be that layer? Above your data, yeah? So you should be protecting the data, but with the context of what AI is accessing, what AI is capable of doing with your data, and so on and so forth. So we have built one platform. We call it Platform for Data and AI Trust. And that platform is capable to secure, govern, prove your posture, and protect service-sensitive data. How do we do it? There are few pillars, and it's a platform, so several softwares and services and so on and so forth. It's not one click. And on the left, there is a before the backup process itself. There is the zero trust, secure by default architecture. There is a DSPM module for classification of your data and detection of permission access and so on. During the backup, I already talked about it because the backup process itself does have this access everywhere. So during the backup, we can do magic, right? Scan the data stream, control what's backed up, looked inside of backed up instance or database or dataset or NAS device or cloud store, and detect anomalies. Of course, immediately report. Everything has to be so-called immutable. It's a year 2026, so there is no reason to have a single restore point of your backup non-immutable. Yeah, so think of it. Average time when a company find out that there is an attacker inside of corporate infrastructure, it's 143 days. So they have 143 days to prepare themselves to find out what is going to hurt you most, to send you the Bitcoin wallet address, yeah. And you should be ready. So it was in the slide, this cyber resilience era. You have to count that also the backups are attacked. So you should be able and prepared to recover at scale and recover with clean data, right? So we have an orchestration module. We have a clean recovery or clean room recovery, let's say, processes for scanning your backup data and pointing out which restore point is clean, which is not, and helping you with the recovery itself. We can do it together with third-party partners, security partners. You can see some logos over there. It's not all at all. Yeah, there are like 40 of them already. And we have a lot of own code implemented inside the platform. Data governance. Once you understand your data, the next step is governance and control. So, because visibility without enforcement does not reduce the risk. Yeah. So you should be capable to understand your data. Define and apply policies, enforce least privileges access, and so on and so forth. Another one, compliance. You have everything set, nice hardware, nice software, super processes, the best trained people, and then audit comes, right? And you have to prove it. So you should be ready for recovery tests, and you should be ready to prove your security posture. With our platform, we have a lot of frameworks built in. An example, NIS2, NIS2 in Czech. So with NIS2, you have a lot of things you should do as organization handling the PII data. So we can scan your processes and tells you if you are compliant or not. Another one, privacy by design. So we continuously can identify, classify, and label your private data, whatever it means. And we can show something we call toxic combinations, which means if you have file with, let's say, credit card numbers somewhere, you shouldn't, but if you have it somewhere, itself, it doesn't mean that you are not compliant. But if you have this file on public SharePoint with a wide access, then it's for sure calling for a big fee from the compliance auditor, right? So Veeam is a platform built for every era of resilience, operational resilience. We still should be able to protect against hardware failures and human failures. Against cyber resilience, we've been here right now. It is the thing we have to solve on our daily basis. So be prepared. You have to know which data to back up. You have to test your disaster recovery scenarios, not only the paper. Do you test your recovery scenarios on yearly basis, monthly basis? No one, okay. And of course, be prepared for what's coming. We call it AI resilience, because everything will be much, much faster, and a lot of mistakes will happen from inside. So be careful, be ready, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Martin, for that detailed roadmap, how to secure our backup. If the last question left everybody silent, I think that should be some inner thought for us, definitely. We're going on. You've heard again the proactive word. You know, it's been a buzzword in human resources on CVs, but of course in cyber security as well. And we've heard already that reactive approaches leave organizations vulnerable, and actually they can drain valuable resources. So our next speaker will urge you and probably your organization to shift focus from threat intelligence data to timely action. So please welcome Director of Advisory and Threat Intelligence Services at ESET Corporate Solutions, Samuel Sulík.
Thank you. Pleasure. Well, good morning, or rather good afternoon, though it's still before the lunch, so hope that you can bear with me. Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about the threat intelligence, and it was already mentioned here a couple of times, how to make it maybe more actionable, and how not just to use from the data towards what is actually important and how to act upon that. So let's dive into that. But before I'm going to do actually a bit of into the threat intelligence, maybe let me just revert back about our company, about ESET. Some of you maybe know us. We are here here on the market for more than, I think it's more than 30 years. But I bet that some of you still know us as a AV vendor. So basically the one that were doing antivirus and then evolved, but maybe not heard so much about us afterwards. So yes, we are here, we are really technology driven, and we evolve, and we are focusing on some other components as well beside the AV that might be still present in your mind. And yeah, we are like protecting 1 billion devices and serving, I think, 5 out of 7 out of Magnificent 7. So yeah, working on that. And just also to bit stress on that one. So basically, though headquartered actually very close to Prague from in Bratislava, so really having strong research presence in this region, fully operating globally, is without research centers, without the sales, marketing, and business offices. Well, actually, 3 days last week, actually in Berlin, we announced 4 new offices directly that we are having in Paris, Netherlands, Nordics, and India. So to complement actually the presence that we have. So that's just a bit of a context of ESET. So in case you have somehow perceived us in the past, so just let me put it on the agenda. And as we were evolving on our focus, so we started quite strongly being present in very first AVs with the consumer, so what we call ESET home kind of solutions. Then moving to, of course, the SMBs and enterprises, where we are already kind of strongly. And actually, recently, really focusing on large enterprises, or how we call them, corporates, where we provide the solutions. That actually was my background. So with the offering that we call private, so that goes towards more the corporate. So this is a bit of a background. So who we are and what we do. And now the threat intelligence, right? So what is it about? Once again, bit of a context, because we are one of the few vendors actually that have the proprietary threat intelligence that we are producing from our own telemetry. So just to give you a bit of idea what we are processing from our systems and from the research labs, or from the services that we are providing. So covering roughly 1 billion devices around the globe, and 1 million businesses. And this is basically the telemetry that we are getting from the globe, and able to digest it and then put it into our technology, into our product, and into other threat intelligence services, our data that we are producing. So to give you just a perspective, so we are producing 2 billion URLs every day we are analyzing. So we are blocking 705,000 URLs every day, every single day. So there's a core engines that are running the technology and our customers are using. And from this is the element that provides also the telemetry for us. So it's the proprietary telemetry that we are then able to even push forward towards the customers as a service. So what is a threat intelligence? I'm very glad that it was mentioned several times already, because it's like getting proactive. Yeah, it's kind of a buzzword, especially in a lot of things. Threat intelligence is kind of a know that we should be more moving towards also to be powered by the threat intelligence. This is what is something that Gartner is saying about the threat intelligence. But what is important is evidence-based knowledge about the tactics, IOCs, and so on. But it should be used to inform the decision making. So you should be able to do something about it. Maybe I just will simplify a bit to cover this kind of what is the threat intelligence. For me, the threat intelligence is understanding and knowing who is attacking, what are they attacking, so what are they up to, so what are they seeking, why are they, and so what is their target, so why are they doing, what is the motivation for? Is just disruption? Is it stealing in the IPs? Is it just ransomware for them? Is it something espionage, or is it criminals because they're just like spraying the market and you are one of the targets? Also, when it's happening? So were there something similar in your industries or in the regions? And actually, and the how is happening. So knowing, okay, what are the vectors? What are the TTPs? What are the IOCs used? So this is everything that is for me actually eventually threat intelligence. And this needs to be processed by the teams that are working with that. Maybe one kind of example about like threat intelligence. So when you are being attacked, so right, so on the left side, and without the threat intelligence, basically you see the attack, right? So it's like playing a chess without knowing what is the counterparty doing and what are the positions of the other figures there. So with the threat intelligence is knowing, like, yeah, I'm being attacked, but it's part of the position that there are other players. So this is happening on the chessboard, and this is the end result, the attack. So this is kind of like give you overview, give you understanding of the situation. And let me be clear that the threat intelligence it's vast. So we are also the vendor of the threat intelligence, but none of it will give you a complete overview of the threat landscape. It's not possible. But it gives you kind of good view of large segment of the threat landscape. So it's also good to be combined or even stack up the intelligence that you are receiving. Or maybe put it also another route. So basically, if you think about threat intelligence and using it, it's like understanding if there's a burglar around, and then you know that there's a gang that goes for your backyard and stealing the whatever bicycles, using just what I usually do, I just checking whether the padlock is enough, and if the simple padlock, they go and just steal it. So with this intelligence, it's much different if you are protecting your home and starting to understand, okay, so if I should double check my padlock in the backyard because I've got the information that the gang is operating in my neighborhood, they are focusing on the bikes actually I'm storing, so I do have also some bikes, so maybe something even more actually precious for me. And actually, should I check how the padlock is doing there? Because I know that these gangs only go because they found it the easiest way, so they just check the padlock. If it's there, they move on because we got this information. So this is the threat intelligence, this similarity, right? So you know what is happening around. You can double check. You can be focused. You can see what is happening in other regions, in other similar industries, but what is relevant for you. That's why you know when you're being attacked that it's part of the campaign, something similar, something new, or is it something larger? Or you can even double check of those in the cybersecurity for IOCs or kind of vectors that are happening. I'm not going to scare you with the numbers and like what are the impacts of the cybersecurity breaches and to the continuity of the business, because I think in the last 1 year, 2, 3 years, it's getting more and more visible. But what I'm just going to maybe highlight here is that cybersecurity is not a part of the IT problem anymore. It's not part of the IT, like some particular part of the IT that needs to be taken care of. I think it's fundamental to the business that it needs to be as a business as usual, part of the business as usual. Because what we see recently, you can name a lot of these examples. Being a Jaguar Land Rover, we know that they were down, the plants were down for 1.5 months, billions of revenues. Companies, let's take Mark Spencer with the e-tail arm, so they were down, couldn't sell on e-commerce for several months because of the ransomware. Yeah, the airports were down. So a lot of things, whatever take it, the cryptocurrencies and exchanges were, even the cold wallet storages were accessed eventually by the hackers. And they stole billions, even for billions, it was up to billion from one of the crypto providers. So it's a fundamental for the business to secure the business and exist. So it's not about some security, some IT. It's really, if this whole cybersecurity can bring me down as a business. So for me, it's more about, yeah, it's integral part of doing business now. What we also heard, I'm quite glad that I heard it from the previous speakers, so I'm not going to actually dwell on that much. It's that we are still quite often in a reactive mode. So that's actually what the status quo that we are seeing currently on the market. So still in the reactive mode. We know that the cyber attacks evolved. I'm not going to repeat that because this was the whole morning sessions were about how the cyber attacks are evolving, we're using new techniques and even AI that is all around us now. The attacks are getting even much more targeted. So if you are part of the industries that are relevant for the attackers, so they are really taking care of that. They are going to target it towards what you are using, towards what kind of profile of assets do you have and perimeter that you have. So this is the fact. So this is currently on the market. But also know that this reactive kind of posture to be on the defense side and just waiting until the attack happens, it's draining a lot of valuable resources and effort and actually even money. So and it's difficult for us to focus. Okay, where should we move? Where should we have focus? Where should we invest more? What should we be trained for? So this reactive approach really it's draining the resources. And according to Gartner, very few of the organizations have a very accurate visibility about the threat landscape that they are operating in. And so what does that mean? Actually, still a lot of companies are on the left side. So still they are seeing there is an attack, but they don't know why is it happening. Is it something like, is it some kind of campaign? Is it part of the APT targeting me, or is just some random, I would say, e-crime that I was just sprayed, and I'm just one of the victims that actually is not even targeted much for me. So the threat intelligence, so a lot of still companies are operating without knowing actually what's happening around them. But also it's very important that everybody will. It would be great if everybody was consuming full intelligence, having the full resources. But eventually, it's also internally to be able to consume it. So understanding, okay, what is relevant for me as a company, which sector, which geography, and according to my assets that are critical for my crown jewels. Okay, so what should be I focusing on protecting? And the threat intelligence is helping that one. So, as of now, or these days, threat intelligence is still kind of perceived as a basically collection of data, so IOCs. So they are using it for the operational purposes. So you're getting a lot of IOCs, the data, and you try to process it as a threat intelligence. What is causing it? Because the attack surface is getting larger, it's getting more complex. So there's much more data and data coming in. So there's a vast number of data that's creating a data fatigue in what we already heard several times also today about that you need to process it, you have to react on them. So it's very difficult to distinguish what is relevant and what is not. So there's a lot of data noise there. We mentioned that the attacks are getting increasingly complex. So with or even without AI. So they are getting targeted attacks. So we're working also with some geopolitical context, and everything is actually even amplified by the expanding attack surface that we have to cover. So the threat intelligence needs to eventually react to this one and start to closing the gaps. So why is the topic of threat intelligence resurfacing? So exactly because of these reasons, because we've got a huge complexity that we have to fight and defend against. The frequency of attacks is increasing. The attacks are sophisticated and much more often. And actually, what is maybe even good here, that even the regulation starting to push that yes, because we need to be more proactive and move actually towards being not even defending, but also be a bit more proactive on left side, is that you need to engage more with the threat intelligence. So that's why the topic is resurfacing again, though it was here for more than decades, right? But it was mostly about the data. So what we actually, with the threat intelligence, what we try to do is move towards the left in the so-called kill chain, right? Because in that case, you get better high detection because you understand what you are looking at. You then, of course, and then if you reduce impact, you can do faster recovery, and you know that you can do the fast even the resolution of the incidents. So the threat intelligence basically helping you to move left on this kill chain. I couldn't more kind of highlight the thought that the threat intelligence is not only about data. Really. So very often it's like, okay, let's get more data, but data are noise or kind of just data unless you can act upon them. So what makes the difference is am I able to use this data? Am I able to get focused because what are they producing me? So give me some more context of those data that I'm receiving. Because getting another stack of data and feeds into your SOC systems and so SOC analysts is just create for them a noise, so that they will be even more difficult to get focused. So as I said, what to do about it? Making it actionable, meaning understanding what is my posture, what is my perimeter, what are my crown jewels, and getting this information and getting the relevant threat intelligence that is there. Understanding the global influence, understanding what is happening in the industries, what is happening somewhere else, somebody relevant that is there. So it's more tailored. The threat intelligence you are getting is more tailored toward you. Because then it helps you even to prioritize the vulnerabilities. So what I'm saying, double checking, seeing the IOCs. Am I even be breached because I see that this particular IOC in this particular segment, it was with somebody else, that it was used and it is there. So should I double check also in my system whether it's not also my case, because it could be that I was already breached. I think that somebody already asked this good question, that how sure we are that we are not breached, because somebody can only just get into our system and just watch, right? And it doesn't have to be a large attack, but if it could occur at IOC, maybe you know that this has already happened to other government or whatever health industry, so you can double check if this is happening also for you. And doesn't have to be major attack, but you'll find out basically it might have happened and somebody just looking already fell for weeks. And and this is actionable CTI. Then it helps you to prioritize what should we be focused on, and then and act upon that one. What is really important is, I think, also was mentioned here that to map the threats against against the assets that you are having. So understand. So what are the priorities? What are the critical stuff that I need to protect, and focus on those. Because it's the cybersecurity is so complex, we are not able to focus on everything. So we really eventually need to focus and bear the risk of the business risk that how much of investment and how much of effort we put into cybersecurity, because we are not able to 100% cover everything. That is not able in these days anymore. So briefly, if you want to elevate the threat intelligence you are getting, you will need eventually cooperate with the vendors more intimate way. Basically building a trust. And it takes some time. And also when we cooperate with our customers, eventually it is a long-term project, because they need to share data with us about their posture, about their perimeters, their crown jewels. We need to come tailored and more tailored, and work closely with them to provide the intelligence that is tailored for their particular company and for particular skills that they are using and how they want to use it. So one maybe advice also for all the companies is get threat intelligence that's relevant for you. So whether you are a government organization or industry client, so it's something different how you use it eventually, right? So if you're a governmental institution, so you are really interested in the motives, why, attribution, so what is happening on the market, much more towards like landscape and what is happening in the country, and how does it affect, for example, the companies that are there. If you're on the industry kind of a client type side, so that means really mapping into what is relevant for me, what is my posture, what are my assets, and what should be I protecting, and what should I focus on as a critical things to protect. So what I mean by actionable threat intelligence eventually, so learning from the previous attack, getting prepared, be focused, and be able to act upon. So it needs to provide me ability to change something, to make a decision, and be relevant for me, because otherwise it's threat intelligence and it's nice reading that costs a lot of money, and in the worst case even gives you a fatigue, because it's like another source of information and you don't know what to do with it. So that's why get it relevant for you, get the intelligence that you can act upon. And briefly here, only a couple of minutes, just what I mean the threat intelligence in practical terms. So we took an example of Czech Republic, just a high level here, because it's just we took as a Czech Republic. So threat intelligence can be from operational data that are even curated, so make it more tailored, and not just hundreds, like tons of data that we are dumping in the feeds, but it makes nothing relevant, up to a strategic intelligence that is for different stakeholders, for different people that are consuming it. So like, let's just example quickly. Then, for example, if you took this kind of a view that, okay, let's have a strategy intelligence on the Czech Republic. So we know that this lovely Prague and the Czech Republic is constant kind of attack on the Russian espionage. So we know the Chinese state is trying to access, or even there were documented cases when they access the network and compile the information, and were listening actually to what's happening there. So it's infrastructure risk, and even what is even reported, it's getting more and more reported because it's needed now. So it's like the volume of attacks are increasing. So this is like strategic intelligence for type of some stakeholders. Another is for you is to understand, okay, in which segment, in which industry am I present, and how relevant it is for me. So if I'm in government in critical infrastructure, that's high priority. We know that. But if I'm in a municipality, yeah, I may be second tier target, but actually in Czech Republic, this is already starting to happen more and more often. So these are all the types of information that you need to know. Or from other point of view, we are also monitoring all these APT groups that are basically, the usual suspects of Iran, Russia, China, and so on. And we know that like which groups are attacking which sector. So we know that in Czech Republic, really, governments are attacked by several consistently attacked by several APT groups. Yeah. So critical infrastructure, you can list it. And why I'm saying that? So you as a company, you're supposed to know in which segment I am, which kind of a region I am. So what does it mean, and which kind of campaigns and APT groups are attacking me, and why are they doing it? And actually, the last maybe that is there is what are they using, what kind of TTPs, right? What are the texts, what are the vectors? Because that's something that helps you to understand, okay, what's happening to me, and is it what's happening to me just a incident, coincidence, or is it something more targeted, more persistent? With that, I will basically, this is what I usually already call, what I mean by the private threat intelligence. And as I said in the beginning, so that's actually mapping, that's what the corporate solution division that we are focusing on. So we are doing this like private threat intelligence because it's tailored towards what we do with the customers, with usually large corporates. But among others, it could be air gapping the products for these customers are based on our technology, or basically even using our scanning engine that are actually powered by the threat intelligence to scan the large volumes of data and being incorporated, for example, into the customer's workflow. So this is towards the solutioning and tailoring that we do in what we call the private. So with that, I think I'm even over time. So thank you, and I will leave it to the next speaker now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again, Samuel Sulík. A lot of information, but thank you for that refreshed perspective on CTI. I'm sure that during lunch you can approach Samuel and have a bigger discussion about that. Now, while our next speaker is getting ready, I just wanted to remind you, last but not least speaker, remember about that, because later also you will see Paula during the workshops. And I'm reminding you that we have after lunch 3 workshops at parallel, okay, that you signed up for. If you have not signed up for, don't freak out. I heard you can still go to the Software One booth and they can solve it out, okay? Because it's important that we are more or less equally in each room, because there are just free spaces. Now, going back to our next speaker and the next session, I've heard about the persistence of attackers, that actually persistence is their best friend, but for the defender, it's the nightmare. And I know, Paula, that you like analogies with animals, so I'm going to use mine, okay, if that's okay. So I immediately thought of kitchen moths, you know, that you think you got rid of them, you cleaned every crack, but they're still there and you're not aware of it. And this is exactly what you're going to see, not the kitchen moths, but something different. Because our next speaker will tell you how to remove the malware and reset some compromised accounts and actually show how to get rid of the intruder once and for all, because many times they stay and we don't know about it. We'll have some practical demonstrations, and we'll see some overlooked monitoring gaps for sure and misconfigurations. Are we ready? Is our next speaker ready, or some more time?
Yeah, no, it's ready.
Okay,
if
you're
I could
ready.
Please have the perfect slides. This is
okay,
good. Awesome.
Perfect. Just wanted to be sure. Okay, so security teams, listen up to CEO at CQURE, Paula Januszkiewicz. Big round of applause.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. I honestly couldn't introduce myself better. Thank you. And if this is the first time we are seeing each other, I'm Paula, as you already know, and what I'm doing for a living for the past 21 years, which is pretty a long time, it's cybersecurity. I started my journey simply doing the legal hacking activities. And right now, of course, I've got a company that I have established 17 years ago, almost 18 right now. So we are placed in 4 locations in the world: Poland, Dubai, Switzerland as well, and New York. And we deliver highly advanced cybersecurity services. We break in, we design the attacks, we hunt for vulnerabilities as well, but we also respond to incidents. And that is exactly what I've been doing for so many years right now. I swim in adrenaline, and when the adrenaline is not happening, when things aren't on fire, to be honest, however that sounds, I'm pretty bored. And also in my time, having access to the source code legally of Windows helped me to understand a little bit more about what's happening in the operating systems. And that's why the subject of this session states that when hackers hide, or where hackers hide, and how investigators actually hunt, because when there is an incident, there's a lot of conclusions coming out, and that is precisely what I would love to share with you on this session. So, long story short, the session is pretty straightforward because it is focused on the experience from incidents. And I have so many stories in my mind that address why we need better security in the organizations right now. And it's not really my goal to tell you that we should do better or anything like that, but it's just to give you a snapshot of what's happening and the conclusions that basically could drive us into the certain directions, to the certain solutions possibly that could address what I'm going to be talking about. So in general, what is absolutely important to know is that there's a lot of different interesting attacks that step to the field that are currently related with simplicity of how AI supports the growth of hacktivism/hacking towards your customers or maybe yourself, who knows. And I got a lot of stories that are there to confirm that. For example, not really long time ago, we've been dealing with the company in the automotive industry. So if you guys drive a car, and I'm sure that most of you do, then basically I'll tell you that you depend on that company in 30%. So it doesn't matter the brand, because this is actually the producer of the parts that your car uses. Which part doesn't really matter, but that is basically what it is. And that company has been acquired by another company, but they originate from China. And not that China is bad, I'm not saying that, but you know that this could bring some flowers to the field. And eventually, when they were doing the acquisition of one of the Chinese companies for the parts sense, then basically they also brought the threat to the inside of the organizations. And on the previous session, you learned that there is above 150 days that hackers stay in the infrastructure before they are discovered. And to be honest, like, we have our own statistic, and we can totally confirm that. Sometimes it's 150 or 60 something. Sometimes it's over 200, according to the FBI's reports. Sometimes it's a year, and that is exactly what we could see. So hackers were actually there for approximately 3 months before they were discovered, and then basically they came to the company, they smashed it, they encrypted, of course, everything, and then they asked for the ransom. Now, fun fact is that hackers actually encrypted as well the backups. But another fun fact is that they were a little lazy, and that's what I'm saying, that AI is supporting attacks, but it doesn't support who is delivering these attacks. So that intelligence, the truth intelligence that's here in the attacks, it's definitely not there, which is disturbing. Why do they get in? And what happened is that they encrypted the backups and virtual machines, the whole virtual environment that they were running on. But the thing is that when they write ransomware, they write it in a way that it's just lazy. They destroy the data by encrypting from like 1 to 8 megabytes at the very beginning, not much, right? And then inside a little bit and inside a little bit of that, and then they leave some mark how that encryption happened at the end. How this is left, it really depends on them. But knowing how partitions work, what we did in this project, we kind of put it on a grill. You're analyzing the partition layout. So if you know a little bit of forensics, you know that whether it's a Linux or Windows partition, let's say it doesn't matter right now, then it has a certain layout. And if you replace that header of the partition and you kind of like address that encrypted parts in the middle, then you are able to recover your data. And that is literally what we did. So just to put that on the field, because a lot of incidents, they put in that first feeling that, oh my God, we have an issue and it's so bad that what we have right now. But the problem is that we never look deep enough to learn how we are able to recover or how we are able to identify the source of a threat. And that is exactly what we are saying. So eligibly, and I'm not showing off, it's a fact, and that's what management board said, we truly saved that company, because if we couldn't recover the data, they said that they will be bankrupt within approximately 3 months. So lucky them, lazy hackers this time, and eventually that recovery was possible. But not everything is so cool. Another story that I have for you to set the stage a little bit before I get into the demos is actually related with one of my personal favorite customers, where there was an admin And that admin is, you know, nice guy. Admins are nice guys. And he's like the one that is helping people. That's what they are used to do. Even though we sometimes deal with some different types of problems, then they are always helpful. And then exactly this guy was doing that after hours. There was some forum, and he came to this forum and he was supporting people that had malware. And someone said like, oh, I got a malware. And this guy came in and he said, no worries, just share some data with me, I'm going to help you. And someone shared that data and he was like, he wrote the answer. But then there's this smarter guy that comes to the field. And he replies and says like, dude, why you are doing this way? There's a better way. There's a link, there's this tool. Why don't you use this tool? Are you silly? Like, what's happening? Everybody uses this tool. And he was like, oh my God, I'm not using this tool. Let me use this tool. So he clicked on the link, and I will never forget this, file 37.7zip, because I've been analyzing his workstation. And 2 seconds later, from the download to the starting point, yeah, this is the time. So he was very excited, you can tell. And he started that, and that was nothing but a credential stealer. The problem is that we could think like, okay, admin, I mean, he's security-aware person, so nothing horrible maybe should happen. It's just credentials, and surely they have MFA and all the things and so on. Yeah, hold on. So what happened is that I will never forget this. This is this information that you take with you to the grave. Like when you see it, you are like, okay, I will never forget this. 127 credentials stored in his browser to the all components of the infrastructure, including the cloud. So hackers took over the cloud and the infrastructure. That's less exciting. But the cloud. So you might be wondering, okay, what do we do now? So with Microsoft, we've been recovering the cloud. Okay, that happened. But then you are left with this one disturbing thought. How could it be that the global admin is logged into just like that? And we did the configuration review of the cloud. And you know what was there? Everybody had MFA, except for that guy. You know why? Because I asked him, I was like, you're a nice dude. Like, why didn't you like have MFA turned on? And he said, because MFA is for users. And I'm like, what the hell? So this is literally what I did, if you wonder. So, and then later that. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of interesting perspectives that we have on the various infrastructures, yeah? And a lot of people use super fancy solutions, yet attacks still happen. Why? And they did too. And I'm not going to say the name of the solution. It doesn't really matter. But what it means is that we spend a lot of money, but our solutions aren't configured to discover, aren't configured to hunt. We are, in most of the incidents that I'm looking at, blind. And sorry to put it in that drastic frame, but that is literally what's there. Like, how much do you pay for your security solution, yet it's not discovering things? How come? It's a matter of configuration. And let me talk a little bit about that. So whenever we are thinking about the incidents, they are priorities when it happens so that you can hunt properly. And today, you need to think about answer to 2 major, but really 3 questions. The question number 1 is what happened? For example, we had a company that, if I will mention the brand, 100% you will know, that had a big incident where the data leaked. And what happened basically there was a 21,000 files that leaked that contained source code, usernames, passwords, personal data for the customers, like everything that you don't want to leak. That leaked. Now, how did that data leak? Oh, funky story. What happened? You need to know how to identify the problem. Let me build a picture so that you know what I mean by this. There is a wife and there is a husband in a big company. Husband doesn't work there. Husband works from home. But the wife, she is the VIP, the project supervisor in the company. She works with Jira. Jira, I'm a big fan, but from the security perspective, underneath the logging under Jira, who has access where and so on, for me, I'm not satisfied. Let me say it delicately. So basically, when you are trying to hunt what happened in Jira, you don't get complete information. Plus, if you guys use Jira or any similar system, did you enable like some advanced logging or whatever the system has over there? Because they did, and it's still not enough. So how do you build your backup? So when we get access to the logs from Jira, how did that data leak? Because eventually hackers managed to get access to the husband's computer. She has stored password in a browser. They managed to get access to her Jira, pulled out 21,000 files, and we got a problem, yeah? So at the end, we got this like Jira logs. Okay, let's identify what kind of a data leak, because nobody knows. How do we address this question? In Europe, it's very important from the legal perspective. And these logs don't tell what kind of a data leak. So you have a legal problem. But they say, we think we got some proxy over there as well. It's like, do you? Okay, let's see. And proxy logs, time-wise, request-wise, matched with Jira. And just because of that proxy, that was just like somewhere out there in a corner, we were able to identify the 21,000 files, which technically allowed us to address the problem legally. So what happened? Do you have enough data that you connect from various sources? And the second question is, did it spread? So if hackers manage to get access to some computers, like how do you analyze your computer from the risk profiling perspective about what kind of applications, for example, users used, and if there are any kind of, I don't know, authentication cookies that could possibly be stolen from this computer to the various apps that are relying on the web. Like, do we know how to address that profile forensically? Because to me and to CISOs, it's actually one of the biggest problems. And the question number 3 I would put on the side is, did the data leak, and can you trace? And how? What kind of that data leaked? And there is basically a bunch of questions we need to answer, but we need to have an action plan. And that action plan is this. This is the basic you should be collecting so that you can correlate that in your infrastructure. But if you ask me what would be nice to supplement yourself with, this is the supplement list that you should be collecting in order to be able to answer all these questions. So whenever we think about the efficient monitoring, because this is what it is, I would name it as a priority number 1 in terms of that. Now let me prove the point to address this, yeah? First things first, I'm gonna log in to the Kali over there. And we're gonna be using here the quick scan password spray. My grandma could run it, so no worries, like to one of the machines. And this machine, in fact, it's a domain controller. Nobody does password spray on a domain controller for the simple reason, yeah, obviously domain controller will be probably monitored. And in the security log, we are collecting over there 4625. Good, this is the bad login. And eventually we have successful login. Yeah? Do we correlate that? We might, but then think about it. If we do, for example, scan with the domain account with the simplest attack on earth, password spray. I mean, I even feel ashamed talking about password spray itself, but no, the way how we monitor that, it's actually quite important. And there's a lot of different variants how you can run it, which is quite interesting, allowing you to be stealth. I'm going to clear the log and I'm going to rerun it again with the domain user. And then we're going to see that the only log that you're seeing on a domain controller, it's the 4776. So you are not even seeing the simplest attack on earth that my wild grandma could run. The only part that you see is just one event without even stating where that logon came from. You only see that there was an attempt, which is a little ironic because they call it an attempt. But how do we know it has been successful? By the error code. It's not an error. It's actually a successful event type. 0x0 means that Bob, being mentioned here, has logged on. Where? Somewhere. That's what it is. And, you know, like my second question in the incident is, of course, did it spread? And it's so important to be able to identify the lateral movement. And this brings me one more story, if you allow. And the story has been fun. It's like happening in the company that's of a size of like H&M. you know, like the clothing company, yeah? So they have stores all around the world. It's not H&M, just to state this clear. So it's really not, yeah? I'm not saying not to trick you because it is. No, it's really not, yeah? So there we go. But similar. So someone came to one of the stores and stick the pen drive, and I know that because we've been analyzing that, and that thing, which is ransomware, distributed across 3,000 stores. And then 3,000 stores suddenly are like, whoomp, communicating through firewall. Firewall gladly has been smart a little bit more than usually and said like, this IP that everybody's trying to connect is actually a little malicious, so maybe I will not let it go. So you see the flip. We'll let it go or we'll not let it go. So it didn't let it go. Lucky CISO. So it's like Friday, 6 p.m. obviously, yeah? Obviously. So I'm reading an email. Hey, Paula, could you join on a call? I'm like, fine, yeah, let's see. Goodbye weekend. This is the life of an incident responder. If you have family, kids, and you want a nice life, don't do that, yeah? Because it's definitely not the good job eventually. It's interesting though. But I'm joining on a call. And it's a big company. There's like 40 guys on the call, and they all ask me what to do. You know how fantastic that feels eventually, yeah? And I'm thinking, okay. So my team is joining, plum, more people coming on a call. I'm like, okay, people, like, what happened? Question number 1. And they're like, that's why you are here. I'm like, okay, awesome. Did it spread? And they were like, we don't know. There's this meme coming with AI. Yeah, who needs it? We all need it. When? Right now, yeah? So this was very similar over there. And eventually, because they didn't have tools and they were not collecting the data, even in the simplest form, they don't have to work on the data. It's just enough to collect them from the endpoints. We unfortunately had to probe the endpoints, go to the store in Romania, go to the store in Poland, go to the store in Germany, this, collect the data, get enough samples. And then eventually we were able to clean them out. One of the longest incidents ever. Nobody was sleeping for like 5 nights because there was so much manual work to do. We can skip it. And you know why it's ironic? And this is relatively fresh because it's from March, beginning of March, print screen. It is ironic because when hackers leave the persistence, it's not, in most of the cases, intelligent. I feel offended when someone leaves me a scheduled task. It's like attack from the 90s, yeah? And then they call it Windows sensor, like we had many Windows, yeah? So basically, and sensors start like, what's that even? And then you look at this and you are like, really? Really? Download bot? This is what we are allowing in our infrastructure while at the same time we spend a lot of money on security? So eventually, why I'm showing you this? Because there are events to identify things one by one. And if we know what's the threat profiles, what are the threat profiles in general world, saying philosophically, well, we know basically what to do. Why I'm saying this? Because sometimes we have, in general, for the identification, either some logs, but look at this. Here, I'm not mentioning, like, of course, we've got uneven logs, but also we are monitoring parent process, child processes, the telemetry around the SMB, maybe WinRM, maybe also prefetch. Yeah? So there's a lot of activities that when we collect it, we are able to get into conclusions. Now, what I would like to show you, it's a quick demo, and that demo is basically with our tools. As some of you might know, our team writes tools. I write tools because of one simple reason. I don't like to seek for things, I like my own things, and when I have an idea, I want it to be done. So that's basically the tools that I'm sharing with you as well. We put it on a GitHub. They are free, they are open, use them as you want, and they are the ones that you can use to identify the components of the lateral movement that are basically there. Okay, so let me show you. First of all, let's create some files. We're going to create some files, and this one's going to be called automatic destinations, because we're going to be looking towards automatic destinations. Not very well, by the way, forensically covered component. It's a great attribute. I'm crazy in love with automatic destinations, and you will see in a moment why. So we are creating 2 files. Because there is a user or there is a hacker making some notes, extracting some log, performing some actions, and then basically just, storing it somewhere and then deleting it. So it doesn't really matter right now. Now we have a tool. The tool is called, not very friendly, CQURE destination to XML, and it allows you to analyze, maybe a couple of words, the computer profile, so computer of the user, telling you what is the different type of a cache stored within the apps. You're not going to find it in forensic books. Maybe in some, but not really, because this is why we did the research. So basically, the output is actually pretty awesome, because anything you touch is actually stored in some sense in the cached files. You open Notepad, it's there. You open Word document, it's there. You make a query // it's there. And it's there indefinitely. And that's pretty awesome. Demo 2, Demo 1, we have it. But I would like to take you to the more interesting thing, of course. So let's get there. It's like whole history since forever, since you installed Windows. So it's beautiful, and it's in the user profile. And then you are able to see that over there. And let's get here. This is our report. Yeah, oh, beautiful. There we go. We have, for example, that. So this is your thought that you're going to have, because you're going to be like, oh, okay, someone downloaded a Mimikatz from that IP. What is this IP about? You can go into the logs of the switches and stuff. And then you're going to be like, okay, did someone actually execute Mimikatz? How do you know that? Well, the answer to that one is pretty simple, because Mimikatz actually executing is able to be marked in Windows if you got prefetch. And the prefetch itself is only working on Windows clients. And let me show you a couple of things here. And prefetch itself would be the mark that something has executed. Now, if I could ask you for one thing from today, that will be one thing. I'll ask you for many, but one that will be enabled prefetch on servers. It costs you nothing. You don't have to aggregate it anywhere. You don't even have to reboot. It's just a one registry key, but this will add on to your signaling scheme. So prefetch, of course, can be deleted. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, of course, you will have a possibility eventually to answer the question whether for example, Mimikatz has been executed or not, like what's going on. So let's see, of course, and answer the question, did Mimikatz execute? And for that angle, over that, I'm going to use the Timeline Explorer to look into Mimikatz in something that we call USN journal. So this is another attribute that you guys should manage. I don't want to sound challenging because you might be doing it, but I've never seen in the companies that had incidents USN being managed. So the personal question to you is, how big is your journal? Because how big it's supposed to be? And answer is, as big as statistics say that hackers sit in the infrastructure before they are discovered. So let's say it's 150 plus days. That's how big should be your journal to carry that, so that you know. Which means how much? 1 gigabyte, I will tell you. So you need to have a policy for 1 gigabyte to actually contain the journal. So the question here is, was Mimikatz deleted? And within the journal, USN journal that is on every NTFS partition, we can answer that question. So we see Mimikatz, file create, yeah? And then we are like, yeah, file create means nothing. It means the file is created. That's it. Everybody has this, by the way. And then we are like, oh, okay, so let's see what's there. And then we are like, oops, there is actually the Mimikatz file create for the PF file. Now this, it's a confirmation that Mimikatz has been executed. Where do you get it from? From the journal. Transactional file just describing transactions on the disk. 50-50 that prefetch will be deleted, but it doesn't matter. You will see it. Can journal be deleted? Yeah, then you can find that information in MFT. There is a place to search for stuff. So that's basically my little angle on that. Now, whenever we think, of course, about the different hunting, yeah, and ways of how we are able to move forward, you could see that there is a basically persistence that covers quite a lot of different, or it is in quite a lot of attacks. Persistence itself, basically, is related and it's relying on misconfigurations and also different places. There is a checklist that you need to always check for that when things happen. Do you have a checklist like that in your place? And the reason why I'm saying this is because persistence and the discovery is as good as our data is. And for that reason, I would like to show you a quick demo. This demo, it's hot because it's literally the tool that I wrote and my team with AI added an output to it because it's a matter of signals that you are creating. So let's have a look. I call it actually CQUSN Deep Analyzer. And when we're going to run it with Python, yeah, and then this is basically the setup. Then over here, you are able to see, of course, different options. So the tool will be available soon for download. It's free. And eventually, there's so many attributes that you are able to actually hunt for, as you see. So USN Journal, it's like the gold. And let's, of course, extract information from the journal. And let's learn, of course, the different persistence, what that could be, and so on. So we are exporting it into the test HTML. It takes, of course, a moment. And eventually, and afterwards, we're going to generate the output, summarizing and logically analyzing every single illogical operation that might have happened on that computer from the disk perspective. And honestly, like here you can, like this is the first thing I do, literally the first thing I do. So here you've got a lot of different outputs. For example, you have different files that were downloaded. Is there any prefetch that is there that is corresponding to the freshly created executable? Yeah, and then let's do XDG open, and then let's have a look at our test. And this creates at the end, let's have a look, the website where you are able to analyze different types of signals that technically could tell you what's happening. And from the USN Journal, it's like reading from someone's hand. Yeah, you can see lots of things. Yeah. So for example, you have a high volume file system activity burst, mass rename activity detected, a mass delete activity detected. Yeah, what that could be, the timeline summary, what happened, when, you want to know, because like it's always a question when, because you have to have some scope. When there are different peaks, and what are the reason flows? Like, do we have what file created, file renamed, and so on? What are the extensions that were used over there? And there's a lot of different activities that are there. You know how long it takes today? 30 minutes to generate that after, of course, you know what to do. So yeah, enjoy, because it's a free tool, and hopefully your hunting is going to be better. Now, finalizing, eventually, we are as good as our data sources. And the reason why I'm saying this is because very often, or almost every single time, really, when there's an incident, the data sources are missing. Like you want to have something, but they're like, oh, we don't have it, or we don't think we have it. They don't even know whether they have it or they don't have it. Yeah. So I have a small task for you. And the task also from the legal perspective, because of the NIS 2 compliance and the responsibility of the management for things in cybersecurity, think about what is the possibility to track your data, how it's accessed in your system. How do you know who accesses data and when? Because when things happen, you will need to answer these questions. Yeah, and it's always by surprise, and it's never there. And that's a bit of a problem from the legal perspective. And why I'm saying this is because whenever, of course, the incidents like that happen, we need to make sure that we are correlating the data, that we are gathering correctly the indicators of the compromise. What are those for you? How eventually you identify that attack, intel feeds, it's people's knowledge. I know how this app works. Yeah, is it vulnerable? Is there any misconfiguration inside? We've been participating, by the way, in a very interesting incident lately where the backend of the app was connecting to the SQL base just by using one account. Can you imagine? So there are users using the app, and then there's a full tracking. But for real, what kind of a data is reached over there? And obviously there was a vulnerability on that level. There was a one account, app1, connecting to SQL. So what kind of a data theft? You can say. So that's why hypothesis-based threat hunting is important. And to leave you not empty-handed, this is the QR code. If you still trust me, or if you don't, then you can always take a picture of the link. That's going to take you directly to the PDF, no registration, nothing, where we are sharing with community, I think it's 113-page PDF, guiding you by our team how to do threat hunting properly to be implemented in your tools that you already pay for. Let's leverage that to the max. So hopefully by this, speaking about different concepts in cybersecurity and identifying how we're able to hunt for data, playing with these two major checklists that I want to leave you with as a summary, so this one and that one, you will be able to address the hunting properly. And this basically is also the place where I'm sharing with you guys presentation. Also, no registration needed or anything. You are able to download this PDF. It also contains a checklist, what to do when your Active Directory is hacked and when someone manages to become a domain admin. It's a bit of a pain, as we can imagine, but it's doable. And there is a checklist over there containing over 40 points that you need to do in order to push it. So hopefully, in some sense, I was useful. Thank you so much for listening. And I will leave you with the amazing hosts. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. And as always, I prepared for you some stickers. And I got the lanyards. Our team likes to go on a barbecue. I don't know if you got that little bit of a thing, but when there's a June and May, everybody is grilling. Yeah, we do. So basically, I leave you the bottle opener because it's important. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paula. You probably want more and want to listen more and definitely take advantage of all your experience. So Paula is also giving a workshop later at 2:30. So who has signed up? Lucky you. Thank you once again. We'll also then probably guide the questions during your workshop, okay? Okay, so thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and let's tackle the unpredictable. Thanks a lot.